Hey everyone, today we're stepping into a world you've probably felt but couldn't quite name. The kind of world where you sleep 8 hours, wake up sore, and feel like you've been emotionally mugged by a cloud. You move through your morning like your bones are filled with sand. Your thoughts are blurry, your willpower's on vacation, and even caffeine starts negotiating its contract with you. And if you think you can control how others feel about you, then maybe that's exactly what you haven't let go of yet. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is over there. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on a fan for some soft background noise, and let's begin today's journey together. You're not just tired. That's the first thing you need to understand. You're drained. And there's a difference. Tired has a cause, a long day, a hard workout, a crying baby at 3 a.m., but this is deeper. You could be on vacation lying in a clean white bed with ocean sounds outside your window. And still, it feels like someone pulled the plug out of your soul. Your body's limp. Your mind foggy. Your mood stuck between low power mode and full shutdown. This isn't sleep deprivation, it's soul depletion. And most people miss it because on the outside, nothing looks wrong. You're going to work, making small talk, checking your emails, drinking your oat milk latte like a responsible adult. But inside, you feel like one more inconvenience might actually unravel you. And no one sees it. No one suspects. You say I'm fine because what else can you say? Hi, I think I'm under some kind of spiritual weather system that's draining my life force. Not exactly first date conversation. Philosophers still debate what counts as a spiritual experience. But you don't. Because when it hits, you know. And here's what they never tell you about spiritual attacks. They don't always look like fire and brimstone. They look like spreadsheets and text messages. They look like waking up with a weight on your chest and no name for it. They look like dragging your feet through perfectly normal days. It's the kind of exhaustion that sleep won't fix, that vitamins can't touch. You hydrate, you stretch, you take magnesium and delete social media, and still, the fog rolls in. It's not because you're weak. It's because something is pressing against your energy in a way you can't see. Some people think of it as negative energy. Others call it psychic interference. Some even believe it's your own past karma catching up in whispers. But no matter what name you give it, the experience is the same. A sense that something is sapping your will to try. Quietly, persistently, like a leaky faucet in your spirit. You notice it most when you finally stop moving. You sit on the couch and instead of relaxation, you feel dread. You stare at your phone, then put it down. The silence doesn't feel peaceful. It feels haunted. And maybe you joke about it. Guess I'm just getting old. Or this is just adulting, right? You laugh. Sort of. But something in you knows this isn't just about your to-do list. This is about your soul trying to hold itself up under pressure you can't explain. You used to have drive. Now it's like someone replaced your inner fire with a flickering LED. And the worst part, you start blaming yourself. Maybe I'm lazy, maybe I'm ungrateful, maybe I'm just not trying hard enough. But no, you're fighting an invisible war with no armor. And here's where the deeper danger lies. When you mistake spiritual fatigue for laziness, you start pushing harder, forcing yourself, overriding your intuition. You caffeinate the corpse. You smile through the ache. You perform instead of feeling. And that's how you lose the war without knowing you were ever in one. It starts small. You stop calling people back. You forget to eat. You keep your camera off in meetings. You ghost your own dreams. You're not lazy. You're surviving. And this is when the enemy wins, not because you're defeated, but because you're disconnected. Disconnected from your body, your voice, your compass. Remember that time you stood under a cold shower because you heard it resets your nervous system, but all it reset was your will to ever do it again. Yeah, that's the kind of burnout we're talking about. There's a certain kind of exhaustion that isn't physical or mental, it's spiritual. And if you ignore it, it doesn't just fade. It compounds. It shows up in your relationships, in your boundaries, in your self-worth. You stop protecting your peace because you don't even recognize it anymore. You start saying yes to things you used to walk away from. You stop feeling lit up by what once inspired you. You become a ghost in your own life. And no, this doesn't mean you're cursed. It means you're targeted. Because your light, your real light, threatens something. And that something would love nothing more than to see you sleepwalk through your own purpose. So here's what you need to do. First, stop pretending you're okay when you're not. Second, stop blaming yourself for being tired. And third, and this one's big, give yourself time in silence, without screens, without solving, without forcing. Sometimes healing begins when you admit, I don't even know what's wrong, but I know this isn't me.
That's not weakness. That's intelligence. That's survival. That's spiritual self-defense.
Because fatigue is not always a symptom, sometimes it's a signal. You don't know when it started. It wasn't dramatic. Nobody slammed doors or blocked you. But something shifted. The temperature dropped. And the warmth that used to greet you, the effortless texts, the midweek check-ins, the silly little inside jokes, all of it started vanishing. Slowly, subtly, like breath fading from a mirror. At first you brush it off. Everyone's busy. Life gets hectic. Maybe your friend is just overwhelmed. Maybe they're on a social detox. But a month passes. Then two. And the silence starts feeling less like an accident and more like a message. You replay the last conversations in your head like a detective on a cold case. Did you say something wrong? Was that joke too much? Did you forget a birthday? A favor? A moment that mattered more than you realized? Philosophers still debate whether the soul is relational by nature, but your nervous system doesn't need a debate. It just knows you're being distanced. And it stings. Not in a loud way, not in a heartbreak way, in a quiet, abandoned at the airport kind of way. Bags packed, nowhere to go. When you're under spiritual attack, one of the first moves is isolation. Because connection is a shield. People who love you remind you who you are. And when that shield disappears even temporarily, it opens space for other voices to move in. Voices that whisper things like, you're too much. Or nobody really gets you. Or the classic hit, if they really loved you, they'd be here. And now you're in it. Alone, questioning, second-guessing everything. You hesitate to reach out again because who wants to seem needy? So instead, you sit with the silence, like a houseplant left outside during winter. And here's the twisted thing about spiritual warfare. It doesn't need you to be hated. It just needs you to feel separate, misunderstood, forgotten, so that when something really good does happen, a small win, a lucky break, a moment of joy, you hesitate to share it. You downplay it. You hoard it quietly because something inside says nobody cares anyway. It's not true, but in isolation lies echo louder. You start noticing little things. People don't laugh at your texts like they used to. You get skipped in the group thread. You find out about plans you weren't invited to. And maybe none of it is personal. But the timing's suspicious. Right when you need support, your circle collapses. Right when you feel most unsure, your mirror people go missing. That's the pattern. And it's not just friends. Sometimes your partner becomes distant. Your mentor stops replying. Your mom's hugs feel rushed. People once magnetic to you suddenly become slippery. It's like trying to hold a balloon in the wind. You start wondering if you're just too sensitive, if maybe you're making it up. But then a stranger says something kind at the grocery store, just a passing compliment about your shirt. And you feel tears rising in your eyes because you didn't realize how starved you were for warmth. That's the sign. You were made for connection, but right now you're starving for it. And that's not accidental, because when your soul is under attack, the easiest way to weaken it is to make you believe no one notices when it bleeds. A real-world example. Remember when you sent out that long message opening up about something vulnerable and got hit with nothing but an in response? Yeah, that kind of cold. It's not that people are bad. It's that spiritual attacks can affect energy, theirs and yours. And when you carry heaviness you can't see, others can feel it. And sometimes their instinct is to step back, to protect their own peace. It's not fair, but it's real. Even algorithms do it. Ever notice when you're already down, your feed shows you everyone living their best life, beach sunsets, toned abs group dinners where no one invited you, and you're sitting there in your stained hoodie eating cereal at 10 p.m., wondering if the universe is trolling you. Here's the quirky truth, even AI has bad timing. But the real danger isn't being left out. It's believing the coldness means you're unworthy. That's the lie. That's the virus. You start adjusting who you are to stay liked. You stop sharing deep thoughts because you don't want to be too much. You nod in agreement just to keep the peace. And just like that, you trade your authenticity for approval you never fully receive.
You're not meant to be everyone's comfort zone. You're not here to shrink into a version of yourself that makes others feel okay. And just because someone turned cold doesn't mean you did anything wrong.
Sometimes people pull away because your presence forces them to confront parts of themselves they're not ready to face. Sometimes you grow, and the soil that held you before can't hold you now. So if you're feeling left out, dropped, iced over, don't rush to fill the space. Let it echo for a minute. Let it teach you who shows up when no one's watching. Because there's a quiet kind of strength that grows in solitude. The kind of strength that doesn't need a crowd. The kind of strength that walks into the cold and lights its own fire. You feel it before you understand it. A knot in your stomach when you're brushing your teeth. A tightness in your chest when someone compliments you. A whisper in your mind that says, "You don't deserve this." And you try to trace it. What did I do wrong? Who did I hurt? Why do I feel like I'm carrying a guilt sentence with no trial? But there's nothing clear, no obvious mistake. It's like someone handed you a suitcase of shame you never packed. This is one of the most sinister signs of spiritual attack, a slow bleed of your self-worth through feelings you can't explain. You start apologizing for things that aren't your fault. For your boundaries, for your needs, for simply taking up space. Philosophers still debate whether guilt is a moral compass or a social weapon. But here's what's not up for debate. When guilt becomes your baseline, you're no longer living, you're atoning. And atoning for what exactly? That's the question that haunts you. You say sorry when someone bumps into you. You feel bad turning off your phone just to breathe. You feel like you owe the world something, but you can't name what or why or when it started. And worst of all, you begin to assume that how you feel is how things are. You feel guilty, so you must have done something wrong. You feel ashamed, so you must be fundamentally flawed. But here's a quirky little truth: you can walk through a perfume store and still smell like it hours later, even if you didn't buy a thing. Energy works like that. So does trauma. So does spiritual pressure. Sometimes guilt isn't yours. Sometimes it's inherited. Sometimes it's projected. Sometimes it's a leftover emotion from a version of you that no longer exists. But here's the cruel trick of spiritual attacks. They know that if they can anchor you in shame, they can chain you to the past. Shame shrinks you. Shame makes you easier to control. Shame makes you believe that you're lucky anyone tolerates you at all. You start avoiding eye contact. You lower your voice. You dress to disappear. You laugh at jokes that cut too deep just to keep the peace. That's not humility. That's survival. You begin to edit your personality. You become the easy one, the agreeable one, the one who always understands, always forgives, always puts others first. But inside, you're burning. And then comes the worst part. When you try to stand up for yourself, even just a little, the guilt floods in like a breached dam. You feel like a villain for protecting your own peace. It's not just in relationships either. It creeps into your creativity, your ambition, your self-talk. You hesitate to launch your project because who am I to think I can do that? You stay in jobs that drain you because other people have it worse. You settle for half-loves because maybe I don't deserve full ones. Let me remind you, guilt is a teacher, not a prison guard. When it's healthy, it nudges you. When it's toxic, it traps you. And spiritual attacks weaponize that difference. Ever watch a movie where the villain doesn't need to imprison the hero? They just convince them the door was always locked. Yeah, that's what this feels like. You walk through the world like you owe a debt. And the worst part is you don't know who you owe it to. This invisible weight makes everything harder. You overthink every message. You dread phone calls. You over-apologize in emails. You water yourself down in conversations, all because some inner shadow keeps whispering, "Don't mess this up." It's exhausting. And sometimes this guilt is reinforced by people around you, those who benefit from your silence. The ones who say you've changed when you finally set boundaries. The ones who act hurt when you stop playing small. That's not your conscience speaking. That's control, dressed up as morality. It's like being gaslit by your own soul. And here's a real-world moment you probably know too well. You're lying in bed, finally alone, and your mind starts playing reruns of every moment you were too much. Every text you overthought. Every time you said no. And suddenly, your entire life feels like one long apology letter. You breathe in. You stare at the ceiling. You wonder if maybe it's easier to just go back to shrinking, to being liked instead of real. But something inside resists. A flicker, a heartbeat. The part of you that remembers what it felt like to speak without fear. And that part, that's the part under attack. Because when you heal your guilt, you reclaim your voice. And when you reclaim your voice, you disrupt every system that benefits from your silence. So next time you feel shame for simply existing, remember you're not guilty for being human. You're not shameful for needing space. You're not wrong for taking up room in your own life. And if someone makes you feel like you are, they're not your judge. They're your lesson. Let that lesson go and walk away clean. It starts with the milk. You spill it on your shirt just as you're heading out the door. You sigh change and move on. Then the traffic hits. Then your phone dies. Then someone at work makes a passive-aggressive comment and you laugh it off even though it stings more than you admit. By lunchtime, you're already fried, and not because anything catastrophic happened, but because everything annoying did. And the worst part, you keep telling yourself it's just a bad day. But it's not just a day. It's a pattern. A slow, steady drip of misfires, delays, and derailments that keep stacking until they break something that used to be unbreakable, your hope. Philosophers still debate whether the universe has an order or whether we're just stitching together coincidences to feel sane. But you know the difference between a coincidence and a siege. You used to handle stress like a pro. The printer jammed, no problem. Someone flaked on plans. Cool, more alone time. But now, every minor inconvenience feels like a cosmic insult. Like the world is testing your patience on purpose and you're failing. You burn toast and feel personally attacked. You misplace your keys and spiral into an existential crisis. You get one K-text reply and suddenly question every relationship you've ever had. This isn't about being fragile. This is about carrying so much invisible weight that even a feather feels like a blow. That's what spiritual attacks do. They stack, quietly, relentlessly. At first, it just feels like you're out of rhythm. Then it starts feeling like you're cursed. Then it becomes easier to stop trying than to keep cleaning up the mess. You skip the gym again. You cancel that thing you were excited about. You eat dinner standing over the sink because setting a plate feels like a luxury you don't deserve today. And here's the real kicker. The more things go wrong, the more you start expecting them to. You start flinching before the email even loads. You open text messages with a little braced breath just in case. You walk into the day like a soldier even when nothing's on fire. But it's not just stress. It's sabotage. Not always external, but internal. When you're under spiritual attack, your thoughts stop being your allies. They become critics, hecklers, doomsday narrators. You start narrating your own failures before they even happen. Oh, I'll probably mess this up anyway. They probably don't even want me there. This always happens to me. That's not realism. That's erosion. Remember that time you dropped your phone in the sink and you just stared at it? Didn't even panic. Didn't even flinch. Just watched it sink like, yeah, of course. That's what spiritual burnout looks like in real life. A shrug in the face of chaos. Because you're too numb to scream. It's not that you're overreacting. It's that your nervous system is on a loop, and every tiny disruption feels like a confirmation that something bigger is wrong, even when you can't name it. And let's be real. It's hard to stay grounded when your life feels like a game of emotional Jenga. One more missed call, one more passive comment, one more plan gone sideways, and everything feels like it's about to collapse. But you hold it together. Because you always do. And people still say things like, you're so strong, as if strength isn't sometimes just masking panic with politeness. You nod, you smile, you say just tired. But inside, you're screaming, I'm so close to losing it, and no one sees it. Here's the quirky part. Sometimes, the enemy isn't trying to destroy you all at once. It's just trying to wear you down enough to where you stop noticing you're under attack. It's like death by 1,000 cuts, but instead of blades, it's traffic that makes you late. A friend who forgets your big day, your favorite shirt getting stained, the we need to talk text, the plant you forgot to water again, individually harmless. Together spirit breaking. Because over time your spirit starts absorbing the message you're cursed, you're clumsy, you're chaos. And now you're playing defense against your own life. But here's where you regain your power. Pause. Not forever, just for a beat. Instead of rushing to fix the next fire, just ask, is this a message or a mirror? Because sometimes the chaos is a clue. Not that you're broken, but that your boundaries are. that your energy's leaking, that something's out of alignment. And yes, sometimes things go wrong because life is random and Mercury is apparently always in retrograde. But when wrongness becomes your rhythm, it's not just bad luck. It's a wake-up call. So breathe. Let the dish break. Let the text wait. Let the plan fall apart. Not everything falling apart is a sign that you're failing. Sometimes it's proof that the old structures can't hold your current weight. And if things keep going wrong, maybe something's trying to get your attention. Before you crash, before you break, before you forget how to rebuild, you lie in bed, eyes closed, lights off. You've done your nighttime checklist, brushed your teeth, put your phone on, do not disturb, maybe even sprayed lavender mist on your pillow like a civilized human being. And yet, sleep doesn't come easy. Or worse, it comes too heavy and leaves you more tired than before. Or worse than that, you do sleep. But what follows feels more like an exorcism than rest. Your dreams aren't just strange. They're hostile. People you love turn against you. Old fears resurface. You fall from buildings, get chased, drown, run, but never reach. Wake up gasping, sweating, heart pounding like you just sprinted through a battlefield, and in a way you have. Philosophers still debate whether dreams are a window to the soul or just neurons cleaning up the mess of the day. But when it happens night after night, it starts to feel less like cleanup and more like combat. That's the thing about spiritual attacks, they don't wait for daylight. Because at night, you're vulnerable. The masks are off. The distractions are gone. Your mind, stripped of its filters, becomes a theater where your deepest fears play in surround sound. And the worst part? You wake up carrying the emotional hangover like it really happened. You start dreading sleep. Start stalling another episode, another scroll, another snack, anything to delay the moment you have to close your eyes. Because somehow that feels more dangerous than staying awake. Insomnia becomes your new roommate. You check the clock 2:14 a.m., then again 3:52 a.m., and by 5:00 a.m., you're bargaining with the universe like, if I fall asleep right now, I can still get 2 hours and function like a semi-decent adult. Then you finally sleep. And dream of people betraying you, lovers leaving you, or that one recurring theme running from something faceless. And you wake up with the emotional residue thick in your chest. You forget the dream, but not the fear. You carry it into breakfast, into work, into your interactions, like a ghost that clings. And then there's the opposite kind of spiritual sleep, the one where you drop like a stone. Not peaceful, but heavy. The kind where you wake up with a pounding head, a dry mouth, and the feeling that someone rewired your soul while you were unconscious. This isn't rest. This is escape. Your body shuts down because it doesn't trust the world or your thoughts enough to stay conscious anymore. You oversleep and still wake up exhausted. You nap and feel worse. You sleep 9 hours and still need a triple shot of espresso to remember your own name. Remember the time you accidentally slept through something important. Yeah. That wasn't laziness. That was resistance. Subconscious rebellion against a world that keeps asking for more than you can give. Sleep, the one thing that's supposed to restore you, becomes a trap. A place where you fight battles without weapons. Here's the kicker, sometimes those dreams aren't random. They might be symbolic. A sign that your unconscious is trying to scream what your daytime self refuses to say. That you're carrying betrayal. That you're haunted by your own silence. That something or someone is still sitting inside you, rent-free, taking up psychic space. Quirky thought, if your mind were a hotel, your dreams are the complaints left in the suggestion box by the guests you've been ignoring. And sometimes those dreams aren't even yours. Some cultures believe we inherit trauma like heirlooms. You dream of war you never lived, of heartbreaks you've never had. And it all feels oddly personal. So what do you do? First, you stop gaslighting yourself. Stop saying it's just a dream when you wake up shaken and disturbed. Honor it. Reflect on it. Maybe even write it down. Because if your soul's sending you postcards from the edge, maybe it's time you read them. Second, take back your night. Your room isn't just where you sleep. It's where you surrender. So make it sacred. Declutter. Turn off that overhead light that feels like an interrogation room and use something softer. Play ambient sounds, rain, wind, ocean, something ancient. Because your nervous system is ancient and it remembers. You don't need $100 weighted blanket. You need to feel safe in your own bed again. And that safety starts with permission to rest, to disconnect, to be unproductive and still valuable. Because sometimes the enemy isn't what haunts you at night, it's the voice that says you don't deserve peace. Let that voice go. You're allowed to rest without apology, to close your eyes and trust that the world won't fall apart just because you do. And if it does, maybe that world needed falling. It shows up without warning. One moment you're confident, sure of your decision, walking into a room like you belong there, and then doubt, sharp, icy, loud. Who do you think you are? Why would anyone care what you have to say? They probably think you're ridiculous. And just like that, you shrink. You rewrite the email 3 times, you delete the post, you change your outfit, your opinion, your tone of voice. It's not anxiety, it's invasion. Philosophers still debate whether identity is fixed or fluid. But when you're under spiritual attack, your identity starts to feel like fog, shapeless, unstable, and somehow always just out of reach. This isn't regular insecurity. This is doubt that feels engineered. Like something precise and intentional is whispering exactly what will unravel you. Not general fear, strategic sabotage. It targets the things you were just starting to believe in. You decide to set a boundary and immediately hear you're being too harsh. You apply for something brave and suddenly feel like a fraud. You open your mouth to speak and question every word before it leaves. And the cruelest part, it doesn't even feel like an outside voice. It sounds like you. That's how deep it goes. You start second-guessing what you used to trust: your gut, your talent, your memory, your own damn instincts. You ask for advice on things you already know the answer to. You seek validation from people who've never understood you. You hand over your steering wheel in the middle of the storm. Remember when you used to walk into a room and not check if you were too much or not enough? Yeah, that version of you still exists. She's just been talked over. This self-doubt feels like waking up in someone else's body, one you have to apologize for constantly. You look in the mirror and start noticing all the wrong things. You hear compliments and instantly file them under lies. It creeps into your work, your relationships, your creativity. You don't share the poem. You hesitate before saying "I love you." You edit your passion down until it fits inside someone else's comfort zone. Here's the thing: doubt in small doses is healthy. It keeps you humble, curious, open. But when it's constant, it becomes corrosion. It doesn't just make you unsure, it makes you invisible. To yourself. You start showing up as the version of you people like not the one you are. Quirky observation, it's like turning down your brightness because someone else's eyes couldn't handle it. But you're the one walking around dim. And then it compounds. You doubt yourself, so you make smaller moves, which get smaller results, which reinforces the doubt. It's a trap disguised as humility. But let's name it for what it really is: spiritual interference. Because confidence isn't just an attitude, it's a resource. And when something wants to weaken you, it doesn't need to take your job, your house, your health. It just needs to take your belief. Your belief that you're allowed to be here. Your belief that you are not a fluke. Your belief that your voice has value even when it shakes. It's funny, the moment you begin to grow, life will hand you a mirror that shows your worst angles. Not because they're true, but because growth makes fear louder. You say, "I'm ready to level up." And suddenly, everything in you says, "You really." Yes, you, really. The voice of doubt will always sound like logic, like reason, like just being realistic. But that's a trick. Doubt doesn't need to destroy you. It just needs to delay you. It needs you to hesitate long enough to miss your own timing. So what do? First, pause, not to surrender, but to name the doubt. Give it a voice. Hear it. And then ask, is this true or is this old? Second, don't wait for the doubt to go away before you move. Confidence doesn't show up first. Action does. Take the step while you're shaking. Write the sentence while you're unsure. Speak the truth while your voice trembles. Because that trembling, that's the sound of chains breaking. And last, remember this. If doubt has suddenly gotten louder, it's not a coincidence. It's a sign you're closer than you think. Closer to clarity. Closer to breakthrough. Closer to becoming a version of you that no longer asks for permission. So stand tall even if it feels fake at first. Even if you're faking it in fuzzy socks with unwashed hair whispering affirmations under your breath. That's still standing. That still counts. You thought you were past it. That version of you, the one who spiraled, the one who coped in shadows. the one who made promises in the middle of regret you buried that version a long time ago. But lately, it's knocking. Not loudly, not all at once, just subtly. That old craving, that ex you said you'd never text again, that bad habit you swore off now dressed in nostalgia. You scroll past the number, you ignore the message. You stand in front of the fridge or the bar or the mirror bargaining with yourself like an underpaid lawyer. This is how spiritual attacks work. They don't invent new traps, they just reopen old ones. Philosophers still debate whether desire is evil or misunderstood. But here's what you know in your bones. The return of temptation isn't just about pleasure. It's about regression. It wants you back in the space where you were weakest. It wants you to believe that growth is temporary and slipping is your true nature. You were doing so well. Drinking less, scrolling less, settling less. And then somehow, on a random Tuesday night, the itch returns. And you don't know why. You just know it feels louder than your logic. You start romanticizing the pain you barely survived. That toxic relationship starts looking like passion. That coping mechanism starts looking like comfort. Quirky observation, the brain's memory center doesn't always tag events with "that was awful." Sometimes it just says "that felt intense." And intensity, even when harmful, gets confused with meaning. You remember the highs, not the crash, the comfort, not the cost, the spark, not the scar. And the enemy knows this. Spiritual attacks don't come at you with a pitchfork. They come with your favorite song from 5 years ago. They come with an innocent just checking in text at midnight. They come with that one show that always made you numb out. It's not about the vice, it's about the vulnerability. Because when your soul is weary from the fatigue, the self-doubt, the isolation, you reach for something that promises quick relief, and it delivers. For a moment, the bite, the hit, the swipe, the call, it calms you, and then it empties you, leaves you with more shame than when you started. And yet you go back, not because you're broken, but because healing is hard, and relapse always dresses itself up as relief. This is the battlefield. You think you're fighting urges, but you're really fighting forgetfulness. Forgetting how far you've come, forgetting how bad it really was, forgetting the strength it took to crawl out. Remember when you deleted the number, then memorized it by accident? Yeah, you weren't stupid. You were scared. Because comfort, even toxic comfort, is predictable. You knew what that pain felt like. Growth. It's terrifying. It asks you to walk forward without the map your pain gave you. But here's what you need to know. The return of temptation isn't failure, it's a flare. It means something in you is flickering. It means your system is hungry not for dopamine, but for connection. Not for escapism, but for safety. Not for the past, but for proof that you're not alone in this moment. So what do? You tell the truth. To yourself, to someone safe. You say, "I'm not okay, and I almost did something I swore I was done with." You name the urge. You bring it into light because darkness only thrives in secrecy. You find rituals that ground you, music that brings you back, voicemails from your healed self, notes in your phone that remind you why you started this journey. And above all, you forgive yourself. Because slipping doesn't mean surrender. You can relapse without returning. You can stumble and still rise. Philosophers say, character is not who you are in your victories, but who you become after your failures. And every time you say no, or even almost say no, you are proving that the old you doesn't own you anymore. So when the temptation knocks again, and it will, don't argue. Don't justify. Just say gently, "I remember how you end." And then do something boring and kind. Take a walk, drink water, watch a stupid video of a baby goat falling off a log. Let reality settle your nervous system. Because the goal isn't perfection, it's sovereignty. You get to choose who drives. And no, that old urge doesn't get the keys anymore. You used to care. You used to light up just thinking about it. That one thing that made time disappear, that made your eyes widen, your voice get faster, your whole mood shift. Maybe it was painting. Maybe it was running. Maybe it was helping people, cooking, gardening, building something from nothing. Whatever it was, it made you feel alive. But now you look at it and feel nothing. The brush feels heavy. The shoes stay in the closet. The ideas never leave the notebook. The passion is gone. Or worse, numb. And you tell yourself maybe you're just getting older. Maybe it's burnout. Maybe you need a break, a reset, a weekend to regroup. But weekends come and go, and still the spark never returns. This is more than exhaustion. This is spiritual suffocation. Philosophers still debate whether passion is a calling or a chemical. But here's something undeniable when you lose interest in the things that once kept your spirit awake. It's often not because you've changed, it's because something invaded. And it doesn't announce itself with thunder. It just erodes, little by little, until you look around and realize your life feels beige. You scroll more than you create. You sleep more than you dream. You consume more than you express. And the worst part, you stop missing the fire, because numbing has its own twisted peace. Quiet, predictable, painless, but also lifeless. You wake up and already want the day to end. Not because anything's wrong, but because nothing feels right. That's the spiritual ambush, not chaos, but apathy. It's easy to notice when you're in pain, but when you feel nothing, that's harder to fight. Because how do you battle emptiness when emptiness doesn't shout? You start saying things like, I just don't have time anymore, I'm too tired, it doesn't feel the same. And maybe that's true, but maybe, just maybe, something has slowly dimmed your access to joy. Because joy is fuel. And anything trying to weaken you will target that first. Think back. When did you stop singing in the car? When did cooking become a chore instead of therapy? When did you stop daydreaming at red lights? When did the calendar go from possibility to obligation? It's not just about hobbies. It's about soul food. The rituals that kept your inner world glowing slowly replaced by tasks, distractions, and quiet resignation. Quirky thought you know how phones lose battery faster when there's no signal. Yeah, your joy works the same way. When your spirit can't connect, everything drains quicker. You're not broken, you're just unplugged. The world doesn't ask you to feel deeply. It asks you to perform, to produce, to stay busy. And when you stop feeling excited, no one notices because you're still functioning, still showing up, still saying I'm good, just tired. But your inner life knows the truth. It's whispering, where did you go? Here's what they don't tell you. When your joy disappears, it doesn't mean it's dead. It means it's buried. Buried under comparison, under exhaustion, under the fear that if you try again and still feel nothing, that'll break you even more. So you avoid it. You avoid the canvas, the blank page, the garden, the music, the book, the thing. You avoid it because it hurts to touch what you no longer feel connected to. But this is how you take your power back. You return. Not for results, not for the rush, just for the remembering. You sit down with your old passions like you're visiting an old friend in the hospital. No expectations, no pressure, just presence. You pick up the pen, you put your hands in the dirt, you open the playlist, you breathe. Even if you feel numb, even if it sucks, even if it feels fake. Because spiritual healing often begins before the emotions return. Action first, feeling later. And if you need proof it still matters, think about this. The fact that it hurts to lose it means it's still part of you. Your joy didn't die. It just got tired of not being invited. So invite it back, even if it only shows up for 5 minutes, even if all you do is sit next to it and say, I missed you. That's enough. That's a spark. And sparks, they remember how to burn. You stub your toe. You drop your coffee. Your laptop crashes mid-project. Your car battery dies again. It's easy to laugh it off. It's just one of those days you say smiling like a hostage. But then it's not just one day. It's 3, then a week, then a month of things breaking, falling apart, or simply not going your way. At some point the randomness starts to feel intentional. Philosophers still debate whether we live in a meaningful universe or one of pure coincidence. But when you spill trip break and lose all at once, you start wondering if the universe is throwing shade. This isn't just clumsiness. This is a pattern, a suspicious string of accidents that seem too poetic to be accidental. Your shoelace snaps on your way to the interview. The package gets lost the day you really needed it. You finally get a moment of peace, and the neighbor starts drilling. Quirky thought if life were a sitcom, this would be the montage where everything goes wrong, while sad piano music plays and you look straight into the camera like, really? But the worst part isn't what happens. It's what it triggers. Because now you're walking through your day expecting disaster. You double-check the stove. You reread every text before sending. You flinch when your phone rings assuming it's bad news. You become a full-time crisis manager in your own life. And here's where it gets deeper. These aren't just events. They're messages, signals, pressure points. Spiritual attacks don't always feel like darkness. Sometimes they feel like disruption, constant interference that wears down your energy and confidence by making you feel cursed. You say things like, "Why is this always happening to me? Did I do something wrong? Maybe the universe is trying to punish me." And boom, that's the real damage. Not the spilled drink, not the flat tire, but the internalized belief that you are the problem, that you attract chaos, that you deserve it. You start avoiding good things because you don't want to jinx them. You lower your hopes to avoid disappointment. You brace for bad news even on your birthday. That's not luck. That's fear repackaged. And fear is fertile ground for spiritual sabotage. Because when you're constantly reacting to micro-crises, you stop reaching for your bigger dreams. You stop planning ahead. You stop trusting ease, and ease is essential to healing. You become addicted to stress, always troubleshooting, always on edge. And if a peaceful day does arrive, you don't trust it. You wait for the catch. Here's a real-world moment. You finally get a break, a clear day, no chaos, and instead of relaxing, you clean the whole house in a manic burst because something bad's probably coming and I need to be ready. That's trauma masquerading as productivity. You've been conditioned to equate stillness with danger. Because when you were still in the past, something did hit you. So now you flinch even when no one's throwing punches. But here's the truth. Chaos is not always random. Sometimes it's crafted. Not to hurt you, but to distract you. From your path, from your healing, from your real power. When you're always fixing problems, you're too busy to ask deeper questions. Too busy to create. Too busy to listen. And spiritual attacks love that. Because a distracted soul is a disarmed one. So what do? First, don't dismiss the pattern. Notice it. Not with panic, but with curiosity. Ask, what is this trying to steal from me? What part of me is being drained? Is this chaos stopping me from resting, expressing, or trusting? Second, take one step to reclaim control. Not everything, just one thing. Organize the drawer you keep avoiding. Light a candle and do absolutely nothing for 10 minutes. Put a sticky note on your fridge that says, "Not everything that breaks is my fault." Because sometimes the most powerful spell you can cast is the refusal to spiral. Third, reclaim your sense of direction. Even if the path feels blocked, move anyway. A walk, a call, a small goal. Something that tells the universe I still know where I'm going, even if the lights keep flickering. And last, breathe. You're not unlucky. You're being targeted because you're breaking old cycles. And when old systems fall, they fight. Let them. You're not the broken one. You're the one strong enough to stay soft in a world of falling things. You can't explain it. Nothing's obviously broken. You're doing all the right things. You eat enough. You show up for work. You say I'm good when people ask, and sometimes you even mean it. But underneath, something pulses. A low, quiet hum in your chest. A murmur in the back of your mind. That feeling you get when you forget a name but still feel the absence. A sense that something's off. And not just in the world, in you. You check your calendar. You clean your room. You watch something funny. It helps for about 5 minutes. Then the unease returns like fog through a cracked window. Philosophers still debate whether this kind of awareness is intuition or imagination. But deep down, you already know which it is. Because the signs aren't just internal. You see it in how you react, in how easily you flinch at kindness, in how you overthink a text that used to feel natural, in how your own reflection feels like someone else's costume. It's not anxiety, not exactly. It's like your spirit keeps looking over its shoulder even in silence. The jokes don't land like they used to. The music doesn't move you. Even the sky looks different, less poetic, more distant. You keep trying to name it. Maybe I'm burned out. Maybe I'm lonely. Maybe I need a vacation, a new job, a massage, a juice cleanse. But nothing sticks. Because it's not about what's happening outside. It's what's shifted within. Quirky observation. It's like walking through your house and suddenly realizing the furniture's been rearranged slightly. Enough to make you trip, not enough to prove someone's been there. That's what a spiritual attack feels like in its final stage. Not dramatic, not loud, just wrong, off, tilted. And this is where most people gaslight themselves. They say I'm just overreacting. They say other people have it worse. They say I should be grateful. But gratitude is an armor. And pretending you're okay doesn't make it true. Here's the truth. Sometimes your soul speaks in discomfort. Not in panic, not in breakdown, but in quiet misalignment. A sock that doesn't fit. a rhythm that's a half beat off, a smile that takes effort. And if you ignore it long enough, your body starts joining the conversation. Tight chest, stomach aches, jaw tension, random tears while brushing your teeth. This isn't just life, this is a signal. Because your spirit has been absorbing pressure from all directions. The fatigue, the silence from friends, the guilt, the doubt, the chaos, the lost passions, the resurfaced temptations. Each part leaves a fingerprint, and together they form a weight that has no name, only presence. It's the weight of being at war without weapons, of carrying a battle in your bones while performing peace on your face. You sit in your car after errands and don't want to go home. You stare at your phone but don't want to be perceived. You crave touch but flinch when someone gets too close. This isn't drama. This isn't weakness. This is a call to wake up. Because somewhere something sacred in you is waving a red flag, saying I can't live like this much longer. Not in survival mode. Not in emotional drought. Not in this half-alive version of life. So what now? First, believe the feeling, even if it makes no sense. Even if everything looks fine on paper. Your soul doesn't lie. It just speaks a different language, sensation, rhythm, instinct. Second, trace the thread. Ask, when did this begin? Not the moment it got loud, but the moment it whispered. A text you ignored. A no you swallowed. A truth you refused to look at. And third, reclaim space. Space to feel without fixing. Space to exist without explaining. Space to listen to yourself the way no one else has. You don't need a diagnosis. You need permission. Permission to be honest. To say something's wrong and I don't know what, but I'm allowed to care about that. Because awareness is the first act of resistance. And clarity only comes to the ones brave enough to sit in the fog without running from it. You're not broken. You're tuned in. And if you've made it this far in the journey through the fatigue, the silence, the doubt, the chaos, then you already know. The feeling that something is wrong is the first sign that something new is about to be born. Not from pressure, but from truth. Let that truth break the silence. So here you are, still breathing, still here, still listening even after everything. Maybe nothing in your life has changed during this video. The bills are still due. The phone is still quiet. The ache in your chest is still hard to name. But something in you has shifted. You've named what they tried to keep hidden. You've felt what they hoped you'd numb. You've seen the invisible fingerprints all over your peace, and now you know. You're not lazy. You're not cursed. You're not just tired. You've been under pressure that doesn't show up on test results or resumes. And still you've walked through it with your soul intact. Let that matter. Let the small acts of resistance count as miracles. Getting out of bed, saying no, crying without apologizing, turning your phone off at midnight just to sit with yourself. That's sacred work. And if no one's told you lately, you're allowed to protect your energy like it's gold. You're allowed to rest without explaining. You're allowed to trust the quiet, knowing that says, I'm meant for more than just surviving this. So take tonight slowly, drink some water, stretch, laugh at something stupid. Hold your own hand for a second longer. Because healing doesn't always feel like light pouring in. Sometimes it's just the darkness losing its grip. That's all for now. The rest is yours to feel. End of script. Have a beautiful day.